Welcome back.
Hi.
So we have a pretty exciting matchup
Mm-hmm.
between
This
Raja.
shows one of my favorite decks and one of my favorite decks.
So I don't actually know entirely what Raja is playing. I've looked at it, and I still don't know entirely what he's playing.
So it's basically the middle school taking turns deck, right?
Okay.
So you are the idea is eventually that you will take all of the turns or take enough of the turns that you will just win against your opponent who doesn't have anything left.
And what's his win condition in this taking turns deck? Is it Palancron?
I expect it's Palancron. I mean, at some point it doesn't matter what you're winning with. So he has three different actual time walks. They cost 5 in middle school rather than 2 in vintage. But he has Capture of Jingxiao, Time Warp, and Temporal Manipulation.
Oh, and Exhaustion is kind of a time walk.
And Exhaustion is kind of a time walk. Prevents your opponent from doing much of anything. He can... other than that, I think it's pretty much Palancron.
Yeah, and some Mishra's Factories. And then he has some draw spells and some counter spells.
Right.
And yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. Taking turns is always one of those things that either it works really well or it doesn't work at all. And I'm hoping either way we'll see.
Right.
Be pretty exciting. And then, as you were saying, Christian is playing one of your favorite decks.
Oh, yes. He is playing Stompy. I'm not sure exactly how many lands he has in this, but it is a mono-green Stompy list. He probably has, 10, 8, 9, 10 lands?
Somewhere in that range. Like anywhere from 8 to 12, I think, is reasonable.
Yeah. But he's got some Rankers, Wild Dogs, Pouncing Jaguars, 2 drops for 1. Interestingly, he's got Might of Oaks, which I think is pretty exciting in a list like this. I think he's got Druid Lyrist and Elvish Lyrist as his control cards.
Yep, a Curse Scroll.
Yeah, so he's kind of planning eventually to just beat Face.
Yeah. He also has one of my favorite cards split between his main and sideboard, which is Hidden Gibbons. Such a dope card.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is a cool list. I definitely have memories either from middle school or the beginning of high school of losing to someone playing a green deck with Might of Oaks and being unpleased by their Might of Oaks. So I'm excited to relive some of those memories. Definitely playing on sort of different axes here, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like these are probably doing very similar types of things in that they're both going to try and win before their opponent can interact. And but one of them is doing it very much through ground combat, and the other one is doing it very much through I'm going to take a bunch of turns.
Yeah, and they're off to the races here with a Wild Dog on turn 1 from Christian.
Yep.
And I believe we have a reader, as the kids say. Raja's making sure he knows what it does. So for those out there that don't know, it's very similar if you're familiar with the card Gazban Ogre.
Gazban Ogre.
But basically, during your upkeep, if somebody has more life than any other player, they gain control of Wild Dogs.
Right.
And then otherwise, it's a 2-power creature for 1 mana. The difference between this and Gazban Ogre, because I believe you can play Gazban Ogre as in 4th, right?
You can. Yep. It's not in 4th; it's in Chronicles.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Actually, it's in like 5th and stuff too. It got reprinted after that because it has new art.
Oh yeah, it has that horrible cartoony art. Anyway, it has 2 toughness, whereas Wild Dogs has cycling. So that's the big difference. And man, it looks like this Wild Dog is getting frisky with a Rancor.
Mm-hmm.
So man, the beatdowns have begun.
Whoop.
Yeah. In other words, according to plan.
Right. The Stompy deck is doing its thing.
Yeah, plays one.
Raja has played a second island.
That's not ideal for Raja. So he has soul lands in his deck. He has Ancient Tombs and City of Traders. But if you don't Sounds like there's a baby. If you don't
He's
get
okay.
there, no, it's understandable. If you don't get there with some of those, it takes a long time, a
Right.
lot of life taken away before you can get to a time walk.
Yeah, I think a lot of times Stompy runs into bigger, better things from other aggressive decks or from a combo deck. This is definitely one of the situations where it's doing its thing and its opponent is stumbling in the right ways. So we'll see what happens.
Though I believe that was an exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell because that is the cool art. But I believe that's an exhaustion from Portal that was cast. And so he skips his untap step, which is great when your opponent only has one land and has no way to play anything else.
Yes.
However, he is all the way down to 6, previously 8 from that Ancient Tomb and attacks. But it seems like he's gone to the races here.
We're taking turns.
Yeah.
We're doing the thing.
What it says on the label, he's taking some turns. But yeah, those Ancient Tombs are a little bit tough right now.
Yeah, I would be worried. I mean, he's got to continue. He's got to continue taking turns. So far, so good. We're on the another
4.
Yeah, another time warp there.
I will say, Raja has a pretty nice looking deck. Portal exhaustions, some signed time warps. I like it.
Well, he doesn't skimp on cards.
No. There's that capture. That's an inexpensive card for middle school.
Hey, it's cheaper than Time Walk.
That's true. He's at 2, so unless he has an exhaustion in hand, I feel like he might be in some trouble here.
But he's got to have, his
exhaustion, or I think he might have access to like Chain of Vapor. Oh, not in the main deck. Oh no, he does. Yeah, Chain of Vapor. He does.
He does.
Chain of Vapor, or a manland, but he didn't play on that turn. Oh yeah, it was exhaustion. He found another exhaustion, so that's. Oh, it's another different art exhaustion.
Oh, boo!
I find that.
Raja, no.
I mean, that's the art I associate most strongly with it. To be fair.
Yeah.
Is the Urza Saga art, but I always wondered about the sort of, I don't even know what they're, pauldrons, whatever. They're not armor, but they are made of cloth and in that same position that are like the checkerboard pattern. That was a thing in Urza Saga. And is that just the style on Teleria?
Was it one artist or was it multiple? Were there many of them? I'm trying to remember. I know what you're talking about.
That pops to mind is Morphling. I don't remember if that's the same artist. It is not. RK Post versus Paulo Parente. So it was definitely like a style guide thing, I would assume.
Style guide art.
Yeah.
Who likes pauldrons?
I'm going to go ahead and say Teleria enjoyed pauldrons.
Yeah.
And a checker.
What they really like is the impromptu checker opportunities.
Yeah.
So.
Anytime you can put a
So I think Raja just scooped there. Or got beaten to death, rather. I mean,
yeah, he either couldn't cast a time warp because he didn't have access to mana that didn't hurt him, or he got hurt by an attacking creature. So
yeah,
and this is probably a little bit of a tough match for Raja. I feel like maybe we should look at his sideboard and see what he has available.
Propaganda is very good. He has that in the sideboard.
Yep. And that Propaganda does seem quite good, and I'm trying to think of
Evacuation, Exclude, those are exciting.
Yeah, Evacuation was the card I wasn't immediately familiar with.
That's just return all creatures, right?
Yeah, it was just from the art.
Yeah.
I'm familiar once he said it, but I had a little trouble seeing.
Yeah.
Another card that has probably 5 or 6 arts over time. Yeah, I think those both seem pretty good. I think he probably can go down a little bit on some of the counters that cost mana because, well, he probably is not going to have very many opportunities to cast those before the card can play.
Sure. Well, misdirection kind of tough against a deck like this. I mean, I think you probably cut some of those.
Yeah, I mean, if you get your Palanquin Grind going, you can always misdirection the Rancor on your Palanquin.
Yeah, put Rancors on your own Palanquin. Right.
That seems like it comes up a lot.
Yeah, I think, did he probably bring in Excludes here?
Oh man, there's another spicy card in that sideboard that I don't know if you saw yet. Dream Tides.
Dream Tides? Is that the green? Is that anti-green?
So it's creatures do not untap during their controller's untap step. Each non-green creature's controller can pay an additional 2 during his or her upkeep to untap that creature. So green creatures don't untap.
It is an extra green hoser, right?
Yeah, that's a funny. I don't know that I've ever seen that card before. God, I love middle school.
Here it is.
Yeah, so I expect he'll bring in most of those, and probably have to bring in Chain of Vapor, right? Just to have some early defense.
I mean, Chain of Vapor is pretty good against anytime your opponent is trying to buff up their creatures. So if they're putting enchantments on it, or playing Giant Growth or whatever, that buys you multiple turns and probably answers multiple cards.
Yeah, well, and especially if they're in a position where they're having to pay for propaganda,
right?
And then you chain it's just it's a tough beat. So I think the Chain of Vapor probably comes in. I don't know what on earth besides Misdirection and Power Sink you cut. Oh, Arcane Denial maybe. Just the counter spells that are not Force of Will.
Do you cut? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I was just gonna say Power Sink and Arcane Denial both counter whatever he plays and aren't super expensive. I mean, I guess Arcane Denial is the problem with Arcane Denial is that it gives your opponent a card back.
Yeah, I guess it's probably okay for this game when he's on the play. In game 3, if one happens, by that point, I mean, we saw in the previous game he had a Wild Dogs with 2 Rancors on it or something. Before you even have those up, it seems tough.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm just looking for cards to cut. I don't think you cut Time Warps. If you did,
no. I mean, I think you're playing all of those. That's the name of the game, right? So,
yeah. Yeah, it looks like they're going through mulligans. I'm going to take a quick look while we're going back to the main screens just to see what Big C has available, just in case there's something fun besides the additional hidden gibbons.
Looking at it, I can't see that he would necessarily want anything. Maybe Cursed Scroll as.
I mean, hidden gibbons beats down pretty hard.
Oh, it does. Yes.
But yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't know that you go much beyond that. If you expect that your opponent is playing propaganda, maybe bring in that curse roll just as a way to close out the game. But
choke is very good.
There's a choke there. Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, no, this is kind of a cool sideboard actually. There's a lot of options. He has Constant Mists, which is another card I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I like that this sideboard collects a lot of random things. It's not necessarily like a usual, what I would expect for a usual Stompy sideboard, which is 4 different cards total.
Yeah, so now that they're in, I just saw an Elvish Lyrist come into play, which honestly is probably about the worst turn 1 threat for Big C. It depends on what he expects. I mean, it's good against propaganda.
I mean, it carries Rancors into battle.
It does carry Rancor into battle, but I think in your ideal world, you want one of your many 2-power or even 3-power in the form of Rogue Elephant creatures.
Yeah, right.
On turn 1. Ooh, that is a pretty Mishra's Factory.
I mean, I guess the thing with Elvish Lyrist is that it would potentially answer a propaganda, but I don't know that he knows about propaganda. So
yeah, I mean it, and it also answers our hidden card that we were talking about, Dream Tides. So.
Oh right, yeah. When we find out about Dream Tides.
But no, I'm a big fan of leading off with your big creatures, but it's also one of those things. He might have a Rogue Elephant. He only has 1 land. There are some sequencing decisions to be made for Green Stompy, despite being a beatdown deck. It's not
always lead with Rogue Elephant, but
yeah. Oof, beating down for 1.
So one thing I'm noticing in my Stompy list, I play Elvish Spirit Guide, and I notice he's not, which is kind of interesting to me. It's kind of a obviously it's a card disadvantage thing, but also
yeah. The other question I had about his list, looking at it, this is just a little bit different than some of the ones I've seen, is no land grant.
Right.
But
yeah, some of the mana acceleration, the mana fixing even isn't really there.
Yeah. Oh man, here's that Rogue Elephant. So he actually probably waited on it. He attacked in with his Lyrist. Oh, and he played the Gates Cradle. Whew. Stompy is stompying right now. But yeah, he waited on the
thing.
Rogue Elephant to be able to wild growth his Elvish Lyrist on the previous turn, or Druid Lyrist, same difference. To kill the Mishra's Factory, and now he gets to follow up with his Rogue Element plus. Ooh,
That's Rancor. Right.
Build your own.
That's a 2-mana Juggernaut.
It is a 2-mana Juggernaut. Juggernaut, let's go.
So it's, I mean, I expect that the reason you put the Rancor on the Rogue Elephant there and not on the Druid Lyrist is because, you know, potentially you might sacrifice the Druid Lyrist, but, you know, he's missing out on 2 damage here by not putting it on the Druid.
That's true. But I
don't think it matters in the long run, but it's probably fine.
Yeah, I think it's probably right. I mean, so we could do math, but I don't want to. He's at 19. I don't know if it changes the clock. Oh man, is that propaganda? It is. So it seems as though he made the right play.
Propaganda, except his opponent has Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's a decent answer. Yeah, right.
Yeah, if he plays.
Yeah, he's just going to pay for the elephant to attack, and then.
Yep. Yeah, this is a rough. Once again, immediately putting the screws to Raja with this this deck, and this has been my experience of Stompy in the format. Is that it does look a little bit like a pile of cards sometimes, but man, it puts on pressure. It's not a deck. You
can't sleep on it. Yeah.
You and I, when I was first testing a 4 Necro deck, I was like, oh, I'm going to annihilate you. I have all these control cards and Necro, and I was just dead.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of times the turn, Stompy will win on turn 3 or 4 a lot of times if you have the right sequence. 3, 4, 5 for sure reasonable. 3 and 4 can be possible. It's just totally doable. It's one of those decks that if you're looking to get into middle school, it's very cheap. I think you can buy it pretty easily.
Well, yours doesn't run Cradle, right?
Yeah, mine doesn't run Cradle, I suppose I might if I had them, but I don't feel like I'm missing them.
Yeah, that was a debate back in those days, even because you're running so few lands, and if it's your only land in your opener, it can be real awkward.
Right.
Well,
and if they have a way to get rid of all your creatures or whatever, like there's plenty of ways where it hurts you. Like I don't know that I would run 4 Cradles, for example. I would run maybe 1 or 2. You could also potentially run Pendlehaven if you.
Pendlehaven is a pretty good one.
I've had that in lists before, but again, it's just a fun, easy way to get into the format. If you like smashing face, it's great.
So it looks like Christian drew the Forest, which might mean that we're in for Druid Lyrist blowing up that Propaganda plus some other creatures. Yeah. Ooh, the Pouncing Jaguar. What a great man. So many these cards. This was my childhood, man.
Yeah.
Acridian. Albino Troll.
Pouncing Jaguar is a 2/2 with Echo.
Yep.
So that's fun.
Yeah, and I feel like it and Wild Dogs together were some of my first forays into. Oh wow, like you can have really efficient creatures as an option in this format.
Yeah.
So there's a couple other cards. I mean, there's a lot of 2-power creatures, but a thing that I was thinking about too, Jungle Lion, which if I'm remembering correctly from before the tournament, Christian was saying this is pretty close to the deck he played in 1999 or whenever it was. So I suspect he didn't have Jungle Lions. They weren't legal then. And he has Wild Dogs and Pouncing Jaguars, so he doesn't need them. But it's just another interesting card you can play in these Stompy lists. And one of my favorite cards that I always am forgetting how many words are on it that you've played is Vine Dryad.
Oh yeah, Vine Dryad's very good. It has Forest Walk.
It has so many keywords. It has Flash. Yeah. You can play it on turn 0, and it's a 1/3, which is like a pretty good amount of stats for nothing.
It's also a nice 3/3 with Rancor, which is being able to put a beefy creature on the board, not just one that's
that doesn't die.
A 1/1 with Rancor on it,
Yeah, Mog Fanatic is a real card in the format.
Sure.
Yeah, so I suspect that Raja is in some trouble here, mostly because he's just drawn those ancient tombs and Cephalid Colosseums, and yeah, it's when you're getting beaten down by
your own lands.
That's and in your own lands, it can be a tough spot. So even if he plays a Time Warp here, it puts him to 4.
Cool.
And I think that's a tough place. Also, as we suspected,
Dreamtides.
Ooh.
Tap 4. I knew it was Dreamtides.
The only problem with Dreamtides here is while that elephant will not untap, there's still 4 power on the board.
Right.
So if he has any form of pump in there, he's dead.
Yeah,
he's dead.
I mean, this still looks very lethal. Did he already pay the Echo on the Jaguar?
He has not paid the Echo.
No, so, I mean, he's got to remember to do that.
Well, and he's at 5, so he didn't have to tap the Cephalid Colosseum, so he will live through 1 attack if there's no pumps.
Right.
And then, not be able to tap any of his creatures. Oh, he's not paying the Echo. Oh, man, I smell Might of Oaks.
It's happening! Yeah, it's interesting that, you think Stompy is a very sort of mindless deck, but there's actually a bunch of different ways you can build it. There's a bunch of different synergies and cards you can include in it. I know we've talked about it before in the chat where we talked about Naf's Asp and Winter Orb, which I think is an adorable combination of cards.
Yeah, that's the hidden 2-1. The one that you don't realize is a 2-1.
Yeah, right.
No, it's a great deck, and it yes, he's just attacking for 2 here. Oh, he also I missed that he had a Cursed Scroll in play.
Oh yeah,
which that interaction we were talking about came up.
Right.
There's the Might of Oaks.
Oh no, my course.
Is this going to resolve? Oh no, it looks like he might have the Chain of Vapor. Yeah.
It is.
Ooh.
So interesting. He can bounce the Chain of Vapor back.
Oh, on the Dreamtides.
On the Dreamtides.
I wonder if he knows that. It looks like he does not know that.
I mean, he may just have not worried about it either, because his lands are precious and he can use them to. I mean, obviously Raja could just play it again if he.
Well, it's tough for Raja to play it again. That's 2 more damage, right? So that it goes back and forth. I suspect that he's not worried about it because he has enough damage in between First Scroll, this Rogue Elephant, the Riverbow in his hand. That's that's enough to kill him.
Yeah, you should have enough.
And he's low enough on life, Raja, that the Ancient Tomb and the Cephalid Colosseum, if either of them tap, the Rogue Elephant is lethal. So this is a tough spot for Raja. Man, I've been impressed. I was surprised by some of the choices in Christian's list, but it is, man, beatdown's going to beat down.
It's still aggressive, and that's all that matters. Like, you can play whatever you want as long as they have like big numbers and attack.
I've had that problem, honestly, when I've tried to build some of the other aggro decks where I've been like paralyzed because there's so many choices. And maybe that's part of the answer is just, pick some.
It doesn't matter. I mean, like, obviously there are going to be optimal choices, but like, if you don't have those optimal choices, or you don't want to take the time to analyze all of them, you're fine.
Yeah.
Just attack for 2, you're going to be okay.
I think Raja is convincing himself that he's dead. He cast a capture, or he put a capture down on the field, and then played a land and said but then, and I think he was just realizing that there's no way for him to have enough life. To get there. So. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. I was really excited about Raja's deck, and I think the idea of taking all the turns is fun.
Yeah. And I mean, he won round 1. So I think that there are probably some good matchups. I'd imagine some of the slower control decks he can probably get there, because or even against things like Oath. I mean, he doesn't have any creatures except for the Palinchron.
Right.
I mean, he has some structural advantages there, but against these kind of really aggressive aggro decks, it can be tough. Yeah. He played Owling Mine, and Anvil of Bogarden.
That's good for his opponent.
Yes. I think you just said, have fun or whatever.
Yeah, right.
No, I was having a conversation about this idea of a taking turns, like Owling Mine kind of a deck earlier this week with Angelo, who's also playing in the event. But we were kind of running into problems for more draw spells because there's really just Howling Mine. There's not whatever that kind of fat spirit guy from Kamigawa was. Even though you have Black Vice, which is a good one, and Viceling is another option for dealing damage.
Right.
So that maybe is why he decided to go more in the taking turns direction than the Owling Mine style. But
yeah,
it's cool to see any of these kind of decks. I'm excited by them.
Well, there's a bunch of cards in middle school, and you have a bunch of options as far as what you want to play, what you want to build. Like that's one of the things we're seeing. Two very polar opposites of what can happen in the format.
Yeah. One, and also I'm just excited to see somebody take advantage of the fact that there are 12 time warps. It's the first time that I've seen somebody play capture or temporal manipulation. So
yeah, right.
So would you like to bring one of these guys in to chat a little bit?
Sure.
Maybe Christian, you guys can discuss the finer nuances of your builds, or we can talk to Raja about some of the exciting things in his time warp deck. I'm open to either.
I either one. We could get both of them in here and talk about what they expected if you want. But let's talk to one of them.
That's not a bad idea.
Hi, welcome. We're talking to Christian and Raja, are two players from the last round. Christian was playing the Stompy deck, and Raja was on taking turns, middle school taking turns. So thanks both for being here. Congratulations, Christian, on your win. Sorry, Raja, it didn't work out.
Yeah. I was just discussing with Christian some of the decisions I made there. I think I made the wrong decision in game 2, but we can get into that. But it's his deck is real strong against mine. I don't have a lot of answers, and the Lyrist actually was a card that's just off my radar.
Sure.
If you're watching, I was just like, oh man, that is a good card against me.
Yeah, originally I like this deck. I owned everything, but I actually had one Lyrist. I don't know where it came from, but I wasn't playing it originally in the deck. So like, this was a deck that I started playing in like 1999-ish, 2000. When like I asked my buddies, I go, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And they're like, "Oh, we're playing Magic." I said, "What the hell is that?" And then next thing I know, I'm sucked into this game that takes over my life, right? So we're playing, and I like Rogue Elephants and these Hidden Givens. I had like 3 Hidden Givens main board. I didn't even have a sideboard. And then I was playing somebody. Who was I playing on middle school? The middle school channel, because I just figured out that there was like this sort of a venue for this format.
Oh, sure.
Like they're like, "Oh, what about this Elvish Illyris? You got him?" I'm like, "I got one of them." They're like, "Oh yeah, you should go and look at this 2009 or 2000 or 1999 World Championship deck that had basically all the cards that I was playing, minus Cursed Scrolls and the Elvish Illyris, and it had for cards." And I'm like, "Oh shit, I got half of these cards anyway." So I figured I'll just go with this one. But that's sort of why my buddies quit playing Magic, is that what you just seen, they would see every day, and they'd be playing, the Vampiric Tutors and the what's the one that's a 5/5 like vampire that flies, that kind of got like a tongue sticking out.
Oh, Senior Vampire?
Yeah. So that was his big deal. He liked that guy. And then there was some kind of artifact that looked like it was like kind of a whippy, those things that you used to buy where they're made out of like silly putty, and you flick them over and you grab stuff off the wall.
Yeah.
I remember the toy. I don't remember the card.
I don't remember the card.
I'm so intrigued.
The card has got a picture of that thing, and you tap it, and it destroys like all the artifacts, lands, and creatures or something.
Oh, Never Now's disc.
That's the one. Yeah, that guy. I was like,
Got
what
there.
the hell is this thing?
Yeah, it does look like one of those grabbers. That's funny. So yeah, no, I feel like that's the ideal story of why like middle school exists, because that's very similar to what I started playing Magic. The difference is I've like kept playing a little bit like continuously since then, but like my strongest memories of Magic and of playing like the most fun is exactly that kind of thing and exactly these cards. I was really excited seeing Wild Dogs and Pouncing Jaguar because I like remember all those echo efficient creatures and being super pumped. We were wondering about a couple card choices for you if you're willing, but it might just be that they were the cards you had then. So if that's the case, that's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. What do you got?
So Might of Oaks is a thing that I don't always see in these decks just because it can be a little bit expensive for the like small number of lands Stompy deck. Has that one been good for you? I mean, we saw it in this game. It got Chain of Vapor, but
the I don't know if it's right, but I would play 4 of those against my buddies, and like they had like unless they had a counterspell, it was like they were done because I only had one guy's Cradle at the time, so I normally got like 3 or 4 guys, and so I can turn 3 or turn 4 kill with the thing. It's probably wrong. But that's what my deck was. So
no, I mean
it was very effective.
It's not wrong if your opponent's dead.
Yeah, it was very effective.
The other thing that we used to do is we used to play like it wasn't 1-on-1. It was like 3 people against. So I had to have enough power to kill somebody and then still have something to do against the next guy. So it was like beat on the guy that can't block you, kill him, and then try to, attrition out the other guy.
Sure.
Maybe that's what it's built for. Maybe play against 2 people. I don't know. But that's kind of what I was doing. So originally I had 4 of the Might of Oaks, and I was like, well, that's probably too many. And then I put in 1 Cursed Scroll because I didn't know what a Cursed Scroll was till I looked at that 2000 or 1999 World Championship deck. I'm like, oh, well, that's a really good card because once I top deck, it's always 2 damage.
Right.
Hopefully they're down low enough so that 2 damage in that next couple turns will be enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Can you guys talk about my sideboard a little bit? Because I'm not sure what the hell's going on with that. I just took a bunch of cards and said, well, these are probably okay. I just don't know.
To be honest, go ahead.
I was saying to Jake when we were playing your match that I was surprised. I have a Stompy deck as well, and I was thinking that I expect the sideboard to usually be like 4 different cards, 4 of each, and 3 of another one. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different cards, which is great, and I think that's awesome because it for one, it's a little bit more entertaining for you and your opponent because you don't necessarily have a strict plan, but you have some big threats like Weatherseed Treefolk, which I think is pretty exciting as far as sort of like you were saying, where if you run out of gas and have one of those, you have an actual legitimate big threat that comes down all at once, and it comes back, and it's hard to kill. But I was surprised that you like most of my difficulties with Stompy usually come against like aggressive combo decks or aggressive, sort of more aggressive, more consistent creature decks like goblins or something like that. So I was wondering, like, you don't have anything necessarily against some of the bigger combo decks in the format, like eggs or some of the necro decks. I think Elvish Lyrist helps, but you're not necessarily controlling a game ever, which is fine. It's
no, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about with it, eggs or like, I'm just looking at this going,
it's better you don't know.
Yeah, if I'm going against like like a deck that is black. Like normally, I got one card that's coming in the mail from a sideboard thing that I seen that goes the Warthog Swamp Block. It's the one that's got maybe a 3/3 or 2/2 that gets pumped for every black permanent they own, and it's protection from black.
Oh, nice.
Green card. I can't remember the name of it. It starts with an N. But I was going to replace it with this one, but I'm not sure even like what I need in a sideboard for anything because I don't really know what anybody's doing. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
it's really hard to tell what's going on in middle school. So like having a bunch of seemingly random things is usually appropriate and fine.
Yeah,
No,
just keep killing them before it matters.
Yeah, right. Don't worry about what your opponent's doing.
Don't sideboard too many cards. But no, we were having that conversation with Andy, who was in our round one feature match. Earlier this week, he said, "Oh, cool! I think I have an idea for a deck. What do I have to sideboard against?" And I was like, "Here's 19 decks that I've seen played in the format. I don't know.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of different options, and so I think having something against a lot of things, or doing like, oh, maybe I'll hit on the graveyard and some colors or whatever is a good way to go. Choke was a card that I saw on your sideboard that I said that's going to be pretty good against Raja.
I was waiting for the choke, actually. I thought that was when he got the cradle with another land, that was what was coming down. Because I was,
And I think Color of the Claw is a good one too. I think there are decks running Pyroclasm and other wrath effects.
Right.
So having something that like lets you recover from that is really good. But yeah, I kind of also I'd like to talk a little bit about Raj's list just because as I was saying to Nat as we were starting off here, I couldn't figure out what was happening. I was looking at all these cards and I said, "There's a lot of time walks," and then I didn't know. So
it's really close. Actually, I actually felt like this matchup against Stompy would have been slightly better. I made an audible in my list, so I added more soul lands this week. So you see there the full set of Ancient Tombs and a couple more. And I previously was only playing 3 soul lands, and I felt like that was the like half a turn to a turn like slower, where I was dying like when I shouldn't die, right? Like so, if I can consistently cast the Time Walk on turn 4, then often that negated a turn of damage, right? So playing Ancient Tomb and taking damage from Ancient Tomb was the same as taking a turn of damage and sometimes less, right? So that was the idea behind that. So yeah, get a card advantage card in play like a Howling Mine, take a bunch of turns, and then beat down with Palinchron. I think maybe I need a Peregrine Drake or like another Untappy.
Oh, sure.
But or maybe another Palinchron, but it's been fine because it bashes for 4. So you just have to stack up 5 turns. That's all, right?
No, I was saying that I think this is probably one of your worst matchups too, just because he can like get on the board so quickly and like because as you were saying, you added those soul lands and the Cephalid Coliseum, which I don't know, I didn't see how many of those you were running, but
one. Yeah, it's just a one of.
You drew it in both those games, which is tough because you're just like taking so much damage from your mana and from him.
I feel like maybe I would play like a 3-3 split with the soul lands maybe next time. The math with the City of Trader is pretty good when you have like a Howling Mine in play.
Yeah.
Oh sure.
Well, I was thinking about even Mox Diamond in a list like this as a way to accelerate. I mean, it depends on how many lands you're running and stuff, but there are.
Yeah, I think the better one, and I have another list with Sapphire Medallion, right?
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was also Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that you were talking about playing a Time Walk effect on turn 4, and like against Stompy, like that's kind of a critical turn for you. Like
but I have exhaustion as well, so that's
right. Yeah.
If there was one more, and maybe there is. I'm my foo on Scryfall is pretty good, but like there's no other exhaustion effect for 3 mana, right? Like
not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So really, like, that's where I had an exhaustion, but I had to play it off an Ancient Tomb. So again, like, I think that just the mix of cards is still like being tuned, but I think, like I said, like 3 and 3 soul lands, because again, you play it on, you play it on your turn 4, and then you can cast another Time Walk on your turn 5, and then play a land, right? And then as long as you have another land drop on your turn 6, you're good to cast another Time Walk. But
Yeah.
with the medallion build, I think again it maybe in a meta where they're going to be more prepared for your permanent, because you get a Howling Mine destroyed. Like I forced earlier,
Right.
like someone destroying my Howling Mine, right? Um, because I needed to make sure that I had cards when I started taking turns.
Yeah. Do you ever find that Howling Mine is too much of a liability for you? I mean, obviously you're able to break the parity of it by taking the extra turns, but like, do you
Right.
worry about giving your opponent the extra card first?
Just I guess just depends if I know what they're on, right?
Sure.
If I played Tax Rack round 1 and I was not scared to slam Howling Mine after Howling Mine,
Yeah.
because Disenchant is the only thing I have to counter pretty much.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe a Fire Blast for some kill, but like I was never in that range. I was for a little while in that range, but then I was drawing like 5 cards a turn at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to say too, as a side note, I was very excited. I didn't know what Dreamtides did.
Yeah.
And then I looked it up and I said, this card seems great. And I'm very excited about the existence of this card in your deck because I hadn't seen it before and I was like pumped.
Yeah.
So that card's cool.
No, that was a big find for me. I actually was searching for just untap, kind of with untap the different permutations in Skyfall to find something that was similar to an exhaustion effect, right? And yeah, so again, Stompy, obviously that's the card, but I don't think it's warrants more than one slot, maybe. But it's a really nice card. Even they have to pay 2 still. So if you can, in a taxing other kind of build, maybe not my deck, but obviously like
it pairs nicely with the propagandist too, because it affects 2 different angles of it.
Right. I think like maybe that is a pretty good card in some version of a Tinker deck that's playing like Prison.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I think again the interesting cards. I like I would just want to bring up Exhaustion has awesome arts. So if you play that card in middle school and you're not playing all 4 arts, I'm gonna judge you.
We were calling you out actually because they were different ones. So
no, I have one of the arts actually out getting signed, the folio art. That's probably my favorite one. But yeah, look it up, people. They're great.
Raj, I have a card for you. I don't know if it's good enough.
Okay, I'm ready.
Misstep. 1 in a blue. Creatures target player controls don't untap during their next untap step.
Yeah, I had that and the land one. Those were both in the maybe pile because there's a land one and a creature one, and I thought, well, that might be like that would be a pairing. If I'm going to play both in the sideboard, then it's kind of like here's the control one, here's the creature one, and then both for mid range. But it's taking up a lot of slots. But I really do like it. But yeah, it. That one is in the maybe pile for sure.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, I mean, the deck looks really fun. I think it is definitely like one of those ones where like tweaking it for aggro versus control and like trying to make it exactly right can be tough. But no, it's cool. I was saying to Nat that I also had a conversation earlier this week about something in that taking turnsy space, but also kind of like Owling Mine with Black Vices. But I don't know if that's a thing that would work in this format either. So there's a lot of options out there.
Right. The other card I have really been looking at and trying to figure out, and I didn't want to audible just this week, but Mystical Tutor is legal, and it seems like it would fit properly in this deck, but it just for making sure you have that exhaustion when you have the 3 mana, right? And then making sure you have a Time Walk when you have 5 mana. So I think maybe a build with a full Mystical Tutor build might be good. Again, depending meta, because it's card disadvantage, right? But
that's nice when you have when you have Howling Mine out too, because you can use it as a you're not you're only losing one card out of your 2 rather than
Right.
losing your entire cost.
But it guarantees you
Right.
have action.
Right.
And especially if you need to shuffle with the time spiral, that's another one. But when you're in that position, normally you're not worried about drawing the time spiral.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know we got to go in a minute. Are we?
Yeah, I think
rolling?
we're just about there.
Yeah, we're waiting on one round, but this was a fun match. Like I said, it's sort of two decks on far ends of the middle school spectrum.
But both really exciting, both fun.
Yeah,
I was glad to see the match, and I think man, it just makes me feel like it's such a great format because I see such different things and such exciting cards that I have never seen before, or cards that I'm nostalgic about. So I wanted to thank you guys because it was a really fun match to watch.
Yeah, Christian, thanks, man. Good games. I hope you keep winning, dude. That's a cool deck.
Cool
story for the deck too.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we'll probably go off.
Where's our producer?
Yeah, go off to be back in a couple minutes. Like I said, we're waiting on I think one more match before the end.
We are pretty much at time in the round. We're waiting for one match to finish up, and we'll get round 3 paired as soon as we can.